So I just photographed a 4-month-old about 2 hours ago, and the only reason I photographed this 4-month-old was because the mom, I photographed her wedding, I photographed her older sister's wedding, and her older sister's wedding, and they all have 3 kids, and I photographed each one of those kids as the baby's first-year wall panel. Did you just follow what I said? We do not do any more babies, but we have remnants. And on that note, because I'm 65 years old now and I'm kind of like changing my direction in life, I want to ask Brian DeMint, our guest, who's with us, an all-time crowd favorite and someone who I've had speak on our webinars probably more than anybody. I'm guessing at least a dozen or more times. Brian, you've always been a busy guy, but I'm trying to get a handle on what you've been up to. So maybe this is the perfect opportunity to just jump into it. Sure. I know you're retired and you got plans. And so before we get into some of the other quirky back roads or darker elements of art and whatever, tell us a little bit of let's catch up with what you've been up to. Because it's been a couple of years since I've been talking to you and what have you. And it's exciting to have you on this Photo Buzz.
Well, it's a big honor to be here, so I appreciate it. And every time you contact me, I'm like, what the hell's the matter with this guy?
Why?
I don't get it, but
I've been asking myself that a long time.
What do you mean what do you mean you don't get it? You don't get what? What's there not to get?
Well, one of the things I think that for me, I never asked to speak anywhere, and I never asked to be published or whatever. Because I don't think I'm that I should be speaking at your conference or whatever. So, but when people come to me, then I feel like, hey, they feel like I'm a good fit for their place. So that's cool. So, so I never asked. So when people ask me, I'm like, they've run out of people. So all photographers have spoken. So we got Brian.
No, you couldn't be more delusional.
Well,
really,
and to get back to your question, what I've been doing is, I've been photographing a little bit, but I've really took off on studying the art, and I really love that. And I'm kind of going in and delving deeper and trying to figure out why people like the things that they do. Because it always baffles me. If you send, you show somebody the proofs or whatever, they're going to pick the worst fucking picture that they can out of those. It's like,
really?
Well, I quit letting them choose because it's like, I don't want that image to represent me because I actually dropped the camera and it snapped on that one. So, but they think it looks arty and cool. So that's whatever. But, I see things from a different viewpoint than they do. Cause I'm looking at, composition and those type of things, and they're looking to make, and I'm like, well, your head's cut off, you can't even see your face. Like, well, but I look skinny, so
it's vanity.
Their idea and my idea of what a good image is different. So I'm trying to figure out why people like certain things. I'm going in and trying to show that some of these rules like the rule of thirds and the golden triangle and golden ratio is just, basically a bunch of horse shit.
Right.
And show, oh gosh, that breaking the rules is okay, just that kind of stuff. So, people look at like, you take like who you think is the most favorite artists of all time, like Picasso and Pollock and these people. And were they actually the best painters of all time? No, not really. Why they were so popular is because they were different. They did things different than what everybody else was doing at that time. So, I know most people look at a Picasso and think a kid did it.
Yeah.
And move on. So,
well, obviously something's working for them. So, is this part and parcel what you're trying to pursue when you say that you're trying to figure out why people like what the things they do, and other than what you figured out so far, which seems to be vanity? But what's your best guess so far? Have you figured any of it out? Do you have an inkling?
Yeah, it's all personal biases. What you've been brought up with, like an anchoring bias, it's a confirmation bias. So what you think is right, you tend to think is, validates that. But just like these painters, I look back at like the degenerate art show that the Nazis put on in 1937. It was the biggest art show of basically all time. And it was an anti-art show, just saying that all these modern artists were degenerate. And they had images from mental patients up, and they had images from Picasso, or not Picasso, but other artists of the day, like Kirchner, and like which one was drawn by, a mental patient, and
hey, mental patients can be artists too. Come on.
Well, that's where they got a lot of their inspiration. There's a guy named Prinzhorn that went around and saw all these artists that were working in these mental institutions and insane asylums, and had, there's, it turned into art brut later on, is what they called it, which is French for wine with no sugar. So like a raw version. So there's a whole term called outside artists right now. And so outside artists are people who are out of the art world and art norm. They haven't had any education as far as art for the most part, but they're creating works that are so personal to them and heartfelt and different than what everybody else is creating, that they're making a fortune now. Because they're doing things that nobody has seen before. Everybody's saying, "Oh, everything's been done." Well, bullshit. Nobody's seen this podcast, So that's not, I get really frustrated when I hear people say that, because then it makes people stop trying. Everything has not been done. We're just not trying hard enough. We need to go back and look at Duchamp and some of these people and what they were doing, and take inspiration from that. I'm getting long-winded, as I usually do. So.
Okay. Well, no, this is a really interesting take. I like where you're going, and I knew we would kind of go down some dark alley soon enough, and it's very fascinating. I still want to dwell on this for a few more minutes, and I want to eventually ask you what you've been up to, insofar as your actual photography is concerned. But can you see the screen?
Yes.
Outsider art. Is this what you're talking about?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
All right. Wikipedia's got everything. So we got.
They really do. And they'll have a list of outsider artists there. And they'll show, just some of the different things that they've done. So Jean Dubuffet is the one that turned he took Prinzhorn's book, and he started going around and curating these works. And
really.
So I think the bottom picture down here, that might be Nick Chan. I'm not sure. Nope, that's not what I thought it was.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
What about this one? Here's the sculpture.
Yeah. And I mean, you have to think about these people that are just using like found objects, things like this. There's some outsider artists that are more famous than others. If you look up a guy named Nick Chan, it's N-E-K.
Let me do that right now. Nick, N-E-K.
Mm-hmm.
Chan, like that? Chan. That's a D. Oh, there we go. Go to images here.
So look at all these. He made this thing. He created all these figures without anybody knowing that he was doing this. And he created these thousands of figures in this rock garden, as he called it, and just out of things that he would find.
Really?
No formal art training, no nothing. Now it's a national museum.
Oh, no
And
kidding.
yeah. So, I mean, he did all this and like an area that was undeveloped, and then the developers moved in and they saw this stuff and they were like, "Oh my God, this is what's going on here?" Because it was acres of these
really?
figures.
He kept busy, didn't he?
He did. He did it for I forget how many years. If I said, I'd be off, but it was something like 20 years before people found this thing.
Well, he obviously enjoyed it and did it. He must have been very committed and passionate about his expression. So he's an outsider, obviously. It's funny that they would come up with that term, outsider art.
Well,
as if there's an inside.
Mhm.
It's almost an elitism sort of thing, no?
It really is, and they've taken issue with the name now a little bit because they have become mainstream artists. People like Madge Gill and Henry Dodger. There's actually a museum in Chicago, the Intuit Museum of Outsider Artists, and there's a guy from Chicago who created thousands of paintings, and some of them gigantic. He wrote a 20,000 page novel called The Vivian Girls, and he was just a janitor like at a high school.
Okay.
And so he didn't have communication with very many people. He didn't tell people what he was doing. So what I love about outsider art is that it's not done for anything but the pure joy of making art, or the feeling that you have to get this out, but you don't have to have the world see it. You know, you create a good image on your computer, and the first thing you want to do is show everybody.
Right.
You know, these people were satisfied with the fact that they had created something that, I mean, just for pure creation.
Mm-hmm.
And most of these people don't know whether their stuff is good or bad. You know, it takes somebody else coming in and saying, "Jesus Christ, look at this stuff. It's fantastic."
Right.
So, you know, when I hear people start talking about all the rules about this and that, especially like photography, there's another artist named Miroslav Ichi, and he had a homemade camera and walked around, you know, a Czechoslovakian city for years, and everybody thought that he was just, you know, had a fake camera and took all these voyeuristic type pictures.
Yeah.
And now his things are worth thousands.
Really?
They still got rat shit on them from the shack that he lived in. And I mean, I'm not kidding. You just can't. It's just unbelievable. But art is art, you know.
Yeah.
And it depends on, you know. Marcel Duchamp basically said that it was for us to create the art and for the viewer to complete the artwork by their interpretation of it.
Yeah. Interesting. I find that you're so on the outer edges of beyond the perimeter of my world, which has been my world for 46 years now, since I was 21 years old. Photography, you know, weddings, portraits, babies, families, and all that stuff. So that world follows a lot of, well, there's both aspects to it. There's the marketing and selling, and then there's the artistic side, which is kind of limited. And at the most, it'll get expanded when you're in a print show. They have judges, and it gets kind of, it becomes almost a parody of itself, because you can look at similarities in dog shows, horse shows, the Academy Awards. There's a lot of politics involved, a lot of bullshit opinions and what have you. But where you're going, and this is what I find fascinating about you, and it expands my mind, is that you're beyond that even, so into this whole new realm. So back to your original comment, you said earlier, and you said you don't know what the problem is with me. When I first saw your work, I recognized it as being dynamic and powerful and visually very stunning. And that's when I hit you up and I asked you if you'd do a seminar and then eventually a live show. And you bring a lot to our world, because you're sort of like encouraging us to think outside the box. But the thing I think, and I'll finish off with this point before I let you continue, but I think the thing I like the most was, especially when we had you in Nashville, You went up and did a live model shoot, and you told the story of your first camera, which you bought at, I think, Best Buy for $600 or something like that, and you didn't even know the lens came off, and you had a cheap, like a $12 light that somebody would buy for their garage, and that's what you used to create a lot of these images. I don't know if you're still using that stuff, but the point being, you didn't need all this stuff that the rule makers say, well, you need to have this camera, you need to have this set of lights, and et cetera, busting the rules wide open.
I really tell people when they go into a conference to really watch when people say absolute, when they have absolutes. You don't have to absolutely have this camera or this or that, but it's one thing for Joe Blow from Joplin, Missouri, me to say this crap. But, when somebody like Horst P. Horst, who shot like, I don't know, 56 to 90 Vogue covers, the camera doesn't matter at all.
No.
I mean, he said that. And then he said, they asked him about the light. Well, what about your light? And he said, the light doesn't matter at all either. He said, it's where it's placed is what makes the difference. So, I took a lot of ridicule and a lot of crap for all the stuff that I did there at first. And, I wasn't a real photographer because I used those lights and that camera, and that I didn't support my family with it, and all these different things. And it was, all the things that you don't really hear now.
Yeah.
So what if I used a reflector light? What is light? Is light. It has three main properties: how much there is, what color it is, and what it's diffused by. So, so who's to say that?
Simple enough.
Well, like that Photo Pro cover right there. That's a good example, because the guy said, we want to use you for the cover Photo Pro, and we want to do a little article on you. And so they'd already chosen me and everything. Then when I wrote the article, or gave him the answers to the interview questions, and he saw what equipment I was using, he was like, oh shit, I think I don't know whether we've made a mistake or, but I think he thought about it more. And the first line of the article is like, we've never featured somebody that used such crap to create work before, basically. So,
well, you made your point. You do make your point in what your daily practices are when you're creating art and whatnot. So have you been busy doing anything at all insofar as your photography is concerned these days? Do you have plans? What have you been up to?
Oh, we've been speaking quite a bit, which has been fun. And that's, it's always fun to try to come up with a new way or a better way of getting people to understand that art is, the photography is still an art form. A lot of times that they're so keyed in on the technical aspects still, even after all this time. Joseph Albers, probably the most well-known art teacher of all time, said, a knowledge of spelling has nothing to do with the understanding of poetry. So you can know all this technical stuff and all the things, even the stuff that they tell you in a print composition.
He's hanging up once in a while.
It means that you're creating, and a certain group think is correct art. They have parameters, and I've judged art competitions. Sometimes when you speak, they're like, you also have to judge. It's like, okay, but it's going to be brutal, because if I see shit that I see, 1,000 times, then it's if you go by PPA rules, the first thing's supposed to be impact.
Yeah.
Well, they throw that out, and they're focused on, I think this image might have been reversed, and it's like, I don't know. I think it was reversed. I'm going to minus 10. I'm not going to merit this because I think it might have been reversed. Well, what the fuck? You don't, if you don't even know, and you got people judging art competitions that can't even tell you the elements and principles of design or the basic rules of composition. So it makes no goddamn sense to me at all why these people are judging these competitions. So,
it's
if you enter competitions, folks.
Yeah.
So you have to take that lightly, because So, I've seen people that were crushed from the fact that they got a 79, or whatever, and it's just somebody else's opinion. Then they go in, they change it, and then they enter it in the next competition. They get a little better, and they do that 5 times. Then at the end of that process, whose image is it? You didn't create that image.
No.
5 people created that image. So,
True.
I don't know. I get fired up about the print competition stuff.
So you've been doing a lot of speaking, and you said you're finding new ways to kind of make this point, which makes me think of like, when the Rolling Stones play, everybody wants to hear their classics versus the new stuff, or, Neil Diamond or whomever. When they see Brian DeMint speak, the classics, so to speak, your main points, I think would be valuable in seeing you live and in person and talking about this stuff, especially if you're doing a live shoot. Are you doing live shoots when you've been speaking, especially within the last year or so? And are you still repeating the greatest hits, or have you found a new way to express this? Because I don't think there is a new way.
Well, I find that there's new ways as I find out new art. By people looking at outsider art, it gives them the freedom to think, whoa, I can be okay. Take the banana that was taped to a wall a couple years ago. Okay, most people are like, that's the stupidest shit I've ever seen, and maybe so, but it was $500,000 of stupid.
Right.
He sold two versions of that, the plans for it anyway, because it's not actual the banana tape you're buying. You're buying the rights to install per his instructions, the banana tape. But and then you give it a name. You have banana and tape, then you give it a name called slapstick, and then all of a sudden you have a narrative. So does that make it more art worthy? And that they actually had to take that down because so many people were trying to see it. Can you imagine people trying to see this thing crowded at the rest of the exhibition so hard they had to take it down because they were afraid the other pieces were going to be ruined. So even if you take it from a marketing standpoint, this guy made $500,000 off this thing. Selling 2 versions of it and the artist's proof, which he sold for like $150,000.
It sounds like, at first glance, like a trend, a little bit of a silly trend. I mean, a banana taped to a wall.
Well, of course, and I think that's the thing that he tried to expose, and I think he used the banana for a specific reason. To show that art had become, comical to the, to the point of, well, we can just tape a banana to a wall and some dumbass is going to buy this for $120,000. So,
somebody did.
And they did, 2 people did. He probably could have had a bidding war over it. But, it's funny because I've been asked to speak at Career Day. They allow me to speak in front of junior high students. Yeah, it's something. So anyway, so the last one I did, I went in, the first thing I did was tape that banana to the wall.
Really?
And the kids were looking at me like, this guy's lost his shit.
Yeah.
And, you're what are you, like 12 years old and middle school? And you're thinking about what you're going to do the rest of your life. Shit, I was 42 before I discovered photography.
Right.
So I don't even talk about the career. I just ask them questions so I can learn, what is art, is that art, and get them talking among themselves. And it's when we have conversations that we find out so much more about what people think, obviously, but you get different viewpoints.
Yeah. That interests you, eh?
It really does.
It's interesting.
Well, I showed Marcel Duchamp's fountain at the last one, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's not art. That's like, that's what we take a leak in, dude." And then one girl raised her hand and she's like, "It is art." I said, "Can you tell me why it's art?" And she said, "Because it exists."
Okay.
And I thought about that for a second, and I thought, whether you believe in an almighty God and Jesus, Buddha, and the Wizard of Oz, or whatever,
Mhm.
or you believe that everything was put together by some big bang chaos and come out in some, fractal form that everything worked out like it did. Everything was created by something.
Yeah.
So to answer the question for me, everything is art. It's just taking the time to understand and realize it and appreciate it.
You have you've always had you seem to photograph women the most. So it seems to be your favorite topic. You find a lot of interesting angles and creations when photographing women. Is that's probably without a doubt a fairly accurate assessment? And do you agree? And why is that? Is there, or do you have an answer to that question? I mean,
no, I do have an answer to that question because I actually know probably more about fashion design than I do photography. So I've been interested in fashion design for many years. And so I actually make most of the outfits that we shoot now. So,
really?
of course, that one is not. But let's see if that's, and these are all older images that you're showing here. These are probably 10 to 12-year-old images.
Yeah.
But things like this, and putting the outfits together, I can't sew. I don't want to learn how to sew. They should make prisoners sew, and the return rate would be 0 because sewing is a bitch. It's the worst thing ever. So creating the outfits, can I go out and buy couture dresses? Yeah, I might be able to afford one if I, mortgage the house. But can I make the same silhouette out of duct tape and plastic bags? Yeah, I can do that. But I like to challenge myself too. So like when I spoke I guess it was Canadian Imaging. So I didn't take any outfits with me. And I said, I'm going to find the outfit on the side of the road walking around before the conference. So I found some straw and some moldy cardboard and a hubcap and some other thing. And that's, because, it does sound stupid as hell. It really does. But I think if you give yourselves these little challenges, I hate artists that say, don't do what I do. So for me, it's like, yeah, this is the way that I work. So me and a model went to, now that would be an outfit that I created recently.
Right.
And
that's more recent?
Yeah, that's from like a couple months ago.
Cool.
So my wife sewed this top and I made the rest of the outfit there, the headpiece and that kind of stuff. So I like designing these different things, and it's just dollar store crap. But, I can tell you this, fashion magazines don't care.
Yeah.
It's about the finished image. And people are like, oh my God, he used Photoshop or whatever. Or no, that was straight to camera or whatever. If you can't tell, why bitch about it? And then we had the argument about, people don't argue about cameras like they used to. But I used to say, if you can open up a magazine and tell me what images were shot with what camera, then I'll believe that there's you have some legitimate cause for this. As far as like a straight portrait photographer. But, if you have to shoot 50 frames a second or whatever to take a picture of some kid doing a layup, I understand that you need special equipment for special things.
I want to see the image with the cardboard dress. I don't know if you got one.
Well, I'm not saying it turned out good. I'm just saying I did it.
You did it. Well,
but I think it's more. I've found that it's more audience involving when I can do things like for one audience, I gave them all paper and markers,
Right.
and so I said, "While I'm talking, I want you to doodle stuff." And then after they got through doodling, I took all the pieces of paper, and during the break, I taped them all together, and I made a dress out of their drawings. So that's what the model wore for the outfit. So I'm trying to get to where they think of this out of the box lateral type thinking. You know, you take people like David Lynch, and I use this quote a lot, is that we think we understand the rules when we become adults, but what we really experience is a narrowing of the imagination. You know, so you give a kid a box, and the kid's they've got a race car, they got a spaceship to the moon, they have all these, you know, they've got a fort, they've got all these things. You hand a box to an adult, they got stuff to put in, you know, put their shit in the attic with. And it doesn't go beyond that. So I think we need to get back, and even Picasso said it 100 years ago, and we still don't listen, that we need to get back this childlike imagination and creativity. And, you know, and then we have AI coming up, and this is going to be that's a whole nother topic there. But, you know, I think we're back to where the pictorials were in 1889 and put the hands in the camera of the general public. You know, photographers were like, shit, we're done. Yeah. Because they can just take their own pictures now. And so they're like, well, we have to elevate the form into a higher form, a higher art form. So that's when pictorialism started, and people like Edward Steichen and these people started making their images a little bit more blurry and a little bit more painterly. So, you know, and for me, if the image is sharp, it's commercial. If it's blurry, it's art. So,
or grainy.
I'm covered either way. So, anyway, you know, I think we're going to face the same thing. Yeah, you know, we're going to face a revolution here, and we'll find a way around it. But it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Oh, I had some questions. Now I can't remember them.
I'm just laughing at some of the stuff you're saying. Sorry, because it just reminds me of a lot of stuff. That's all.
This is pretty common that people, you know, that you know, I talk for a little bit, and they're like, "Well, you're not talking about exposure, so I don't know what the fuck to do with this." So,
well, it's given me things in a certain way.
It's given me a lot of thoughts, but I just had one I was hanging on to, and I was going to bring it up. And as soon as you mentioned AI, and then you said we have to evolve to another art form, just threw that thought out the door, and I'm trying to retrieve it, and it's not coming back to me. So, but let's keep it simple. Did you get a new camera, or are you still using the same system that you bought from
Best
wherever?
Buy? Yeah. Well, you know, it's kind of funny. I did get a new camera, and I actually got it. This is the first time that I actually did a little research and went to a camera shop and got their opinion. And I got me a Fujifilm camera. It's got some numbers on it. I don't know what it is. TX something.
It's got all kinds of buttons.
Yeah, but you know what I really liked was the viewfinder, because it would come out and you can change it to all these different positions. So I'm looking at people like Vivian Mayer and who are using box cameras, and they're taking their images by looking down like this. So they're taking them at a completely different angle than we are. You know, so like a lot of times when I do a fashion shoot, I do sit down. So I am at a perfect angle because I shoot very short focus. You know, I am 3 to 4 feet away from the model. I'm not across the room, you know, screaming at them. You know, I found that it's a lot more. I don't, you know, I hate using the word intimate because I don't want people to get the wrong idea with that. But it's a lot more personal when you don't have to fool with strobes and different things like that. And I'm holding my hand light, you know, and they can pose and we don't have to keep making breaks and stops, and they can get in their mojo. I can get in mine. And yeah, so using that different angles to shoot has been great. Plus, I'm like 200 years old, so I can't crawl around on the floor like a worm anymore. Very easy. Once I get down there, I'm
hard to get up.
Okay, but getting back up is, takes a week.
Yeah. So just the one lens, then you're probably shooting as a standard, whatever, 50 mil.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's got it's like 1850 to 50 or 1855. Like I just absolutely don't give a shit about any of that stuff. And as long as it captures an image, and but I can tell you why that I started looking into it a little bit. So because it has face detection, because I only shoot portraits, so this is very handy for me. It makes focusing very quick. And then it's got the eye detection as well. So I can get very sharp portraits versus what I used to be getting with like a zone system. Zone. I don't even know what the hell I'm talking about. So don't ask me anything technical.
All right, we'll get away from that. Let's talk about fashion. You mentioned that you were a aficionado of fashion art. Was that obviously was something you had well before you got into photography? And where the hell did that come from? Would you have been a fashion designer in another life?
After doing the fashion that I've done just for the photography, yeah, I probably would have. I really like the aspects of creating an outfit and having somebody be very excited when they see the outfit because, we're creating stuff, out of just material and the mind's eye type of thing. I do look at fashion design a lot. People like, Alexander McQueen when he was alive and John Galliano. And, if you look at the work of Iris Van Herpen and some of these people that are using like 3D printing type of things,
right.
And again, they say there's nothing new under the sun. Well, yeah, there's a 3D printer. I said something really foul there. And so it's, if you embrace new technologies and keep evolving, then I think that you'll find new ways to do things that people haven't done before. How are you going to stick out in a crowd of 1,000 photographers if you shoot exactly like they do? If you shoot exactly like whatever organization says you shoot, then how in the hell are you going to stand out when people are trying to decide who they want to photograph their images?
Yeah.
So,
Have you ever had an interest, and I don't know why I've never asked you this question. I don't think it's ever come up in any of thing I've ever heard you talk about. And maybe you have art gallery. You seem well positioned, at least maybe years ago, or maybe it's something you're looking to do down the road, or never at all. To your work, I could see you being that kind of an artist who has an art gallery display, and you're selling prints or not, limited edition, one-offs, sort of thing, sort of that world. You know what I mean? That world. Does that make sense? Is that something that's in your universe?
And I know you're going to feel like gut punched when I say this, but I'm not interested in making money whatsoever.
No,
So as long as I make just enough to cover my costs and make sure I'm not losing money in the photography right now, then I'm good, because it allows me to do exactly what I want, and like I don't do any commercial work anymore. And so opening a gallery and having to deal with taxes and deal with all this stuff that I want to see, I'm 62. Shit, I'm about done, So I want to make sure that I want to do what I want to do. And if I leave any sort of a legacy, it's going to be the images that I create, and not so much philanthropy or entrepreneurship or whatever. it's basically, you know, I'm the most selfish photographer ever, because when a model comes in the studio, they don't know what they're going to shoot.
Yeah.
You know, I just say, you know, put on this stuff. We're going to set you on fire and run around, you know, and, you know, seriously, I have no idea, because I don't like to pre-plan what I'm going to shoot that day. I don't know what kind of a mood I'm going to be in that day.
It's
You
very
know,
spontaneous.
if I plan something bright and happy, and then I walk in, I feel like, you know, being a mall shooter that day or some shit, then, you know, it just doesn't work. So, and then I get a feel for what the kid, you know, when they show up at the studio, I'm like, I don't want to stuff a kid into an idea that doesn't fit them. So when they walk in the studio, like this young man walked in the studio one day, and I'm like, my God, you look like a serial killer. So we found this shirt, and we put some blood on it. We went over to a friend's house who has a filthy bathroom. He's a single dude, and he's very, he's, you know, a lot of
He's
hair.
a guy.
But well, yeah, exactly. So, you know, we put him in this hair-lined bathtub, and I gave him this fake gun and said, I want you to pretend, well, it wasn't a fake gun. We actually gave him a real gun with no bullet. And I said, I want you to pretend that you've done something that you really regret right now. And he never had modeled before. This was not what he was expecting whatsoever.
No,
but
yeah.
Since he was thrown into this situation, he had no preconceived ideas of what he was going to do. So we had to actually just play the role at that time. And he was fantastic. So 10 minutes into the shoot, he's crying. He's got his head down on the sink and he's bawling. And I'm like, dude, do you mind if I take that gun back from you? You know?
You triggered him, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and a girl walks in and I'm like, my God, you look like the Virgin Mary. Let's do the Virgin Mary. This is going to be great. So we start shooting her as the Virgin Mary. Then she starts telling me some stories. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is not the Virgin Mary. I can tell you that. But it's, you know, being inspired, people like Robert Rauschenberg, you know, he had no preconceived ideas of what he was going to create that day. He would go out and walk around the city and find things that he would create with that day. So he's inspired by found objects.
Okay.
And so I'm inspired by the kids and what they bring to the table.
And you're inspired by found objects. That's one thing I know about you. But you seem to get a lot out of that experience and that approach to creating, which is in large part driving your passion, I would imagine. It just sounds like it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. You know, here's an example. Challenge yourself. So me and a model went out and we had lunch as a break for the shoot. And then we drove by a rummage sale. And I had an idea. I thought, okay, let's go back. So the next shoot has to be entirely made up of things that we buy from this rummage sale right here.
Nice.
So, you know, so it makes you look at objects in a different way.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like at say Lowe's or Home Depot, and the wife is thinking home projects, and I'm thinking, what can I put on a kid's head that won't actually injure them, that make a cool headpiece? So I'm like in Home Depot asking them where the dressing rooms are, and they're like, what the hell? What? Huh? So, you know, it's just reapplication is the term for it. So looking at objects in a different way than they were meant to be.
That's a good exercise.
I love that. Yeah.
I remember 1987. I was at the park. I was waiting for a couple to show up. I was very insecure, and you know, I was a full-time photographer, but I was very insecure, and I was like, I was trying to figure it out and all this. And I remember thinking to myself, what is the key to creativity? I asked the question, and I like to put questions out to the universe often, and I wait for the answer to come, which usually does either while you're having a bath or shower or swimming or sitting on the toilet. Is when you're not thinking of anything else, and boom. Anyways, right after that, I met this guy. He's a local designer. He was a floral designer, and then he became a fashion designer, and eventually an interior decorator. And I became very, very good friends with this guy. And he was as gay gets. And I always thought that that's your stereotypical sort of like to stereotype, which obviously is not the case for everybody. But anyways, very, very creative. And what I learned from this guy really aligns with what you're saying. And it really stuck with me that he would always approach a situation and go, there's beauty here somewhere. I was like freaking blown away, especially when he did interior decor. I'm like, how the hell? So it sort of got me to think that way. Although I've had very few opportunities in my professional career to really apply it a whole lot because of the confines of my business, right? But I think in large part, I'm still fascinated by that question, and therefore fascinated by what you're doing and a lot of your philosophies and straightforward way of kind of expressing this stuff.
You touched on something really quick there where you were talking about what triggers creativity. Well, there's a guy that wrote a book in 1926, and he listed out the 4 stages of creativity.
Oh, yeah?
And you described the second stage there, but the first stage is called preparation. So you take all this art in, you read books, you see movies or whatever.
Right.
And the second part is incubation. And so that's where you're not doing anything and things are going around in your head. You let the stuff set and, you dream this weird shit and all that. It's part of those things being intertwined. And the third is enlightenment or the aha moment, eureka moment. And those usually happen at low brain activity functions, like taking a dump or going for a walk or driving your car, especially as a woman. So that's a joke, by the way. And that's when you get those aha moments. And the fourth stage is validation, whether you take that idea and put that idea into practice or you reevaluate that idea and brainstorm how you can.
What's the name of that book?
It's called The Art of Thought by Graham Wallace.
All right, I'm writing that one down. I'm going to look it up. Graham Wallace. That's interesting that those steps are outlined as such.
And most of those steps are happening simultaneously. I can't say as we go on. So it's not completely linear. It's
I remember talking to a TV producer who had a very successful TV series, and he said that the idea came to him after he had like a storyboard with just ideas, and then he was just letting it incubate. And then he was one day after a long day's work, he smoked a joint, poured a glass of wine, and went into the hot tub outside, and boom, the whole thing came together in like a minute. So from that point on, he was very successful with this new. What we're talking about here is pretty much what that book defines: the stages of creativity. It's and.
You'll see them listed, and sometimes people add a fifth one, but this was in 1926, so we're talking nearly 100 years ago.
Yeah.
People really haven't figured out a better way to explain how creativity happens.
Well, is anything different? Really, I don't think much is different insofar as what he wrote back then. Probably was true 100 years prior, and 100 years from now, we're talking about the fundamentals of being human and art.
That's true. That's very true. But with the idea that they can actually monitor which parts of your brains are engaged, which part of your brain is engaged at certain times.
Yeah.
I would thought that they would come up with a definitive answer. Oh, well, this is, and maybe they have, and I haven't read it yet. So that's why I'm always searching.
Yeah. Well, and then again, maybe there is a God. Who knows? So, which would just kind of throw everything out the door, wouldn't it?
Well, and people believe, that's another conversation.
Yeah.
It really is. Like I was just listening to John Cage the other night, and they were talking about, the afterlife, and he's like, well, I'm in the Eastern philosophies, and I'm not concerned with the afterlife. I'm concerned with the now, and that's where the enlightenment comes from. I want to find out what I should be doing now and what
Uh-huh.
I'm here and what I'm about, not about what happens to me after I die. So
Yeah.
I never thought about that before, how that changes a little bit. So
Yeah.
anyway,
True, very true.
Yeah, I think if you you obsess too much on the future, you're really missing out on the present. So that's how I take that. And what you do
I
now
agree.
is of far more weight. So you're speaking later this month at in Arkansas, as I see, Focus 2022. Is that a
23.
PPA event?
It is a PPA event. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you doing a 1 day, 4 hour, or 3 day, or?
I think it's 3 hours, and we're
Okay.
doing a fashion shoot from start to finish. So
Okay.
basically, I'll create the outfit on the fly. Dina will do the makeup. My wife, Dina, is the professional makeup artist. And then they're welcome to ask questions about makeup and how
Right.
we relate ideas to each other, and how, and forming an idea, everything from forming an idea to the final shooting before I take it into Photoshop.
So that's 3 hours.
Yeah, well, I usually do 4 shoots in 3 hours.
Okay.
Just, you know,
Yeah.
so.
You're going to start off with that going right into a live shoot then, I would imagine.
Exactly. And then I allow people to try my methods.
Mm-hmm.
And, for some people, they think it's a joke. And then other people find that, like using the reflectors or whatever, which is the best way to explain how light works, and, how the facial lighting patterns and that type of thing, using a simple light works best for explaining those things. But also, I found that a lot of boudoir shooters like those lights because they just need a minimum of light.
Yeah.
And they've got a light that's got a clamp on it, so they can put it on a desk or whatever they need to put it on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
light situation, and it works great. And there's no big adjustments. If you want more light, then you move it the fuck closer. If you want less light, then you move it away. I mean, it's just so simple. So, Edward Weston said, real quick, Edward Weston said, if you find yourself bogged down in your photography, start losing some equipment, simplify your equipment.
Yeah. You see this picture here, it's a small resolution. Can you guys see it?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, that's shot that a long time ago at some event. I'm not sure, or I found it on your website. These are the cheap garage lights I was referring to earlier on when I introduced you early on. You still using those? And
I do, not as much as I used to. When you speak a little bit, then they start sending you some stuff, which is kind of fun. And it's like, okay, well, could you send some instructions as well? Because I don't know, I can't even put it together.
A lot of buttons.
Why would you need, but you can see some of the other lights that I've got there.
Yeah.
The strip light, and
right?
Some of that stuff, and I'm using strip lights with some grids and some stuff like that for special stuff. But I found that this is still the most simple way, to get what I need, and from the model as well. But am I making billboards out of these shots? No.
Yeah. You probably could.
But although that the resolution of these cameras and programs like Topaz, taking the grain out, is just incredible.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I thought those lights were there for show, just props.
Well, they actually might be somebody else's lights. I was trying to put on airs there by saying they were mine.
You're busted. What is this on the right here? Is this a hair blower? Or a fan?
That is it looks like a hair blower, but it's more powerful. It's a fan.
Okay.
I can't remember where I bought that, but it sits on a stand. So it makes it nice. So if I just want to blow the kid's hair, I can do that, versus my fan that I've got in the studio that'll blow the kid against the wall.
Right.
That's true.
I wonder if that's a tool that you could buy at Home Depot or something like that painters might use, or drywallers. I don't know.
I'm sure you could.
I think you could, and you could probably find a good battery-powered one that would be great for going outside. You know, I've used weed eaters or leaf blowers for, you know, outside things.
The gas-powered or electric?
Well, now I would use electric. The gas-powered, you know, after
So loud.
45 minutes of getting it started, I need to go take a nap. And exactly. So
look at how sweaty I am. Jesus, I'm going home to change. This is we got a heat wave going on. So, have you guys had any tornadoes lately?
No, fortunately, we have not. And for those that are not aware, we did have a terrible tornado that tore half the town apart and lost many lives. And
that.
It was a terrible, terrible thing. So, fortunately, we haven't had anything like that. So, it's just mostly people killing each other here. It seems to be the bigger thing. Yeah, it's crazy. It's a crazy world, you know, and you never know. And you know, I hate to get in the dark side right here at the end, but I think that one thing that bugs me about some photographers, like, this is going to make you mad too, and I'm sorry, but there's certain words that kind of piss me off, and I call them the bullshit words of photography, like investment, value, empowerment. And, you know, okay, we're going to do all this, and we're also going to do it in a 15-minute mini session. There's no way. There's no way that is going to happen in the 15-minute mini session. So there's one thing that, you know, and I'm saying, not saying all photographers do this, but there's some that use these words to get people in, and then that's not what happens. But, you know, for me, it's always been that if I can keep a 17-year-old kid from going in the closet and cutting themselves, it's far more important than any fucking image I'll ever create. That's for sure.
Yeah. So you've had a few stories. I remember you telling a few of them how the results and the experience of the photo shoot you created with, especially with some young girls, it really empowered them. They cried. You made them look really good. And it sort of had a very positive psychological effect. And I've always found that to be very bizarre, especially in the world of boudoir, because I know a lot of women photographers who shoot boudoir. That's the effect that is sort of, I don't know if it was on purpose, or that was a byproduct that just sort of showed up. These women were really, really changed because of that experience, and the way you can bring them a visual experience into their lives and create these images in the end means a lot to them, has a lot of meaning in many ways. I think that's what you're saying, but for young kids too.
In a way, yeah. But I also think that it's also a word that's used in marketing,
right?
That is not actually accurate for the way that some people do.
So you're in Joplin, Missouri, and there are 52,000 people there. It's smaller than I thought. Oh,
not as small as mine.
Bonnie and Clyde breezed through there once. I'm just checking.
You know, and when you think of that, and I think of when I started, and, you know, of course it was less than, and people were like, well, how are you going to be a fashion photographer in Joplin, Missouri? It's like the internet. You know, because the internet has made the world closer. You know, I read, there was a movie I saw, I don't remember the name of it, but there's a great line in it, and he said, the internet has brought me closer to the world, but further away from life. And I thought, well, that's really a good line. You know, but I shot for a magazine in Indonesia, you know, and things like that. And you can do that kind of stuff when have the internet. So it makes the world small, and so you can do this stuff from, you know, look at all the people working from home now who don't even want to go back to work. It's like, I'll quit if you make me come in, you know.
So you're retired now.
Yeah.
And before we let you go and close off today's talk, do you have any other plans in retirement? Do you find retirement exciting, boring, neutral, empowering?
Well, I get kind of tickled because I watch some people saying like, wow, I worked my butt off, and I did, 5 shoots this week, and I'm doing this printing, I'm doing that. It's like, no, you're just busy. Working your butt off is what I did in the 80s, working in 140-degree heat on the firing deck of a turbine, cleaning oil guns. That was work. That wasn't keeping busy. So I kind of get tickled about that. So, I think sometimes we forget how grateful we should be about what we get to do. We take it for granted and we get mad. Oh, I got to edit these images. And, God, what a luxury job that we have.
Yeah.
And I mean, I understand it can get hectic, and some people can be real jerks and all that. And as far as what, I'm getting away from your question again, but
no, you're right on, man.
I think that for me, it's just creating what I want to create. And I'm in this intake series. So I went to see Barbie and Oppenheimer.
Right.
Recently. Have you seen any of those, either one?
Neither. I'm going to go see Oppenheimer, though, but I have no interest in seeing Barbie, though.
Okay, well, Oppenheimer is funnier.
Is it?
And it's about building the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I am not the target audience for Barbie. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
It was, it's supposed to be funny and all that. And I found myself questioning so many things in that movie.
Really?
Like, this is a terrible movie for teenage girls.
Is it? Really?
It's not even a fit movie for girls that are 12 and under.
No way.
Me. So, but anyway, Oppenheimer, and I saw a couple other films, and I was just like, it's an okay film, but they're getting away from the whole artistic point of it. So I went back and watched 15 Ingmar Bergman films over the next 15 nights, and I've read 9 books in the last month by William Burroughs. And, the first stage of creativity, this input stage where I'm taking all this stuff in. Yep. And now I'm finding, wow, I want to do photo shoots. I want to manifest this stuff.
Right.
I look at Viennese activism and seeing what they did. And so that's the stuff that gets me excited. If you have a creative block, go to a museum.
Yeah.
And walk around. You'll be inspired because you're setting aside formal time to actually study. You're not just fucking around on the internet. You're setting aside formal time to actually look and study and take this stuff in. If you go with a group, then you start having discussions about art. That starts getting you excited about creating again.
Or go see a Barbie movie.
Yeah, I mean, it did make me want to create because I'm like, look, this piece of shit can make $500 million or whatever it's made now. And, again, I'm not the target audience, but I'm not sure that I laughed or even smiled once. I cringed 1,000,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it I'm even having to be explained to me. Why is this a good line?
Yeah.
And so
it's a sign of the times. Interesting. So there's something else I wanted to say, but I want to just end off with something you said 3, 4, 5 minutes ago. It had to do with gratitude. I think gratitude is a good place to really always default to and start from there to build up whatever direction one wants to go to. Because when you're grateful, you're humble, and you can get to be more creative. Would that make sense to you?
I think the actual idea of being grateful is definitely, it does make you want to be more creative, and getting positive feedback and that kind of thing makes you want to be more creative. I think a lot of times we just take it for granted, I guess, because I see a lot of people bitching about how many things that they've got to edit and stuff. It's like, you should be glad you have so many clients. There's people out there that don't have any clients, and I understand. It's just everybody bitches about their job. I'm sure, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever job you've got to complain about it. But, there's different levels of complaining and what is truly bad. So, if you have tons of clients and your business is going good and, you're not feeding your kids dirt and things like that, you got a lot to be grateful for as a photographer right now because there's so many photographers.
Yeah.
And, I'll kind of close with this, I've asked Sal and I've asked Dave Junior and I've asked many people who have taken a chance on me for different reasons. Really nice and to be supported. But I've noticed at all these conferences, there's nobody between like 18 and 22 there, or 18 and 24. And that's the people that could benefit the most about what is being said in these conferences because they're getting real world talk about what's going on.
You're talking about the attendees.
The attendees, yes, sir.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
So I went to so there's a kid in town, and I'll give a shout out to him. He might watch this. I don't know. Mateus. And he's more about getting people together to create shoots. So anyway, he asked me to come to this shoot that he'd put together, and it was like a little weekend conference. And I found out why young people don't come.
Why?
One, because they think they fucking know it all.
Right.
Two is because they don't want to be told what to do, because they want to discover it on their own.
Okay.
And I think that discovery plays a lot into how your style is going to end up. And I think that is very important. A lot of people want to skip that and they just want to be told how to do it because they want to get right into making money. But sometimes jacking around with your own way of coming up with things, make your own style via me. I didn't ask anybody for help. I should have asked a lot of people for help. A lot of people told me you should seek help.
Me too.
About the photography. So, but they're getting such joy out of it.
Yeah.
And but they're also understanding there's so many things on the internet now where you can learn how to be a great photographer.
Yeah. It's all out there.
Yeah. People used to make fun of like moms with cameras and soccer moms and stuff. Now those people are taking away business from big business.
Yeah.
Because they're learning how to market. People like you were giving them ideas, and you've always been great on that side. And for me, giving people a chance, like giving me a chance back in Inferno and those type of things. I just can't tell you how much gratitude I have for those kind of things.
That's cool. Yeah, you've always said that, and it's good. It's cool. It's kind of weird.
No, it's not weird. I don't think you realize what it is. We found Sal.
Well, I do.
You sent that sample video, and why would you send me Sal Sincata for fuck's sake? I mean, the guy's got 40 employees, and why don't you send me some loser that can't make money? Is like he's sitting on the street with a camera, and he's also got a 10. So took me some money in this thing. It
was random, very random.
He's playing their harmonica and taking pictures. No, you sent me Sal Sincata for crying out.
I just wanted to show you, as an example of how we ran these photo buzz interviews. And that's all. It's just three.
Well, don't
three
send
guys.
me anything intimidating. I thought, well, I can either do the interview or I can go in the bathroom and hang myself. There's two things. So
Point taken. Okay, I got to run. Brian, thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm sorry I got off on so many tangents. You know how
I'm glad you appreciate. You really get a lot of gratitude out of helping others, and you get asked to do that kind of thing. And yeah, we'll probably have you back sooner than later, maybe with a specific topic. That would be really good.
That would probably be good if you say you hear some perimeters, because I'm looking at John and I'm thinking he's looking like he's watching a horrible train accident.
No, I'm just sitting back watching.
John had no idea what to expect. John, what did you think?
No, it's good. I think that you can sum up the whole episode and have an open mind. I think that's the biggest thing, because the whole episode basically is about having an open mind.
Yeah,
to different things and different ways of thinking.
Oh, Jesus, you could have saved us an hour.
I know.
No, I loved it, because a lot of stuff you were saying too reminded us of an ex-guest we had, Squires. Her name was Shannon Squires, and she does a lot of that fantasy type, shooting kids and then putting them on unicorns and putting them in their bedroom with tigers and lions, and it's all added later. I mean, who says that's wrong? Just because it doesn't conform to what those contests say, like you were saying.
Yeah. There you go. Exactly.
As long as the client's happy and the photographer's happy, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I got to run. So thanks again, Brian.
Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you, John.
I much appreciate it. I'll send a link to the replay on YouTube if you're inclined to want to share it with anybody.
Well, I told people it may or may not be shared.
Oh yeah. No, it's up to you. I'll leave it up to you.
I'll go on your Facebook page and just share it on there for everybody to see anyways. That way you can't hide it. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I appreciate it, because that's the only place I display stuff. My website is crap. It's 10 years old. And
well, Rob will give you the link, and then you can put it up there. I'll buy him all you want.
Yeah, I'll leave it up to you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys so much. Very appreciate it.